So a friend of mine came to Japan a couple months ago, and I showed him around Osaka. It was a good time. And for him, just the opportunity to come to Japan has been a long time dream for him. And so you want to honor that. And I took him around to various attractions and tried to explain the whys and what fors about Japan. And we had a really good time. And what I wanted him to leave feeling some sort of connection to this place. And obviously, because I'm a local, I know the ins and outs, he gets a better sense of sort of what were the whys in the house for Japan. And as the day went on, I told him, I said, don't come to Japan before you're 40 years old. He's in his mid 30s. I said, Japan has nothing to offer you, and you have nothing to offer it. And the reason I say that is because I think many people often romanticize Japan. We see the anime and we see the kimono and we see some of the temples and the sort of unique Japanese architecture, unique Japanese interiors. But if you come here for the romance, that romance is ultimately going to shift, sort of take on a different context, or just wear off entirely. And a lot of the people that I encounter do come here quite young, and they really struggle once that, not even romance, that novelty wears off. And so the gaming centers, the arcades, the anime shops, and then you're forced to live here, and you're forced to live in a place with a very homogeneous culture where you'll always be an outsider no matter what you do. And it's very difficult to create social connections here and sustain them, especially if you live in the bigger cities, because it takes time to navigate from area to area. And that's not just Japan. The same could be said of any big city around the world. And so those are some real hard realities about being here. And then on top of just sort of the day-to-day, right? How to manage yourself, how to sustain yourself, how to navigate various situations, whether it's the doctor or the tax office, for example. And that really takes a toll on you. And it's not that I'm any different, right? These things are challenging for me too. The point is, when you come here as an older person, I call a veteran, say 40 years old, think of it like an athlete, a baseball pitcher, or an NFL quarterback. You've got years of experience behind you. You've seen every situation. There's nothing your opponent can do that you haven't already seen. And you see the game differently for that reason. And so you're prepared for those different types of situations. And even though there's often this sort of stereotype that older people are less willing to adapt, Japan really is ideal at this sort of phase of life, 40 years old, because these situations do require you to adapt, but in a way that really leverages your maturity, your experience, your skills. And so I think that's one of the pathways to success here. You, at 40, come here with a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of experience, and that's valuable, because let's be real, speaking English or teaching English is not a career path. It's just not. We've got countries now where English is their second language and they're quite fluent. So say the Philippines, for example, what distinguishes someone from, say, the US who teaches English from someone from the Philippines who teaches English. And so the, the difference is that often the Filipino worker is paid a lot less than the American worker or the Canadian worker. And it's fair or unfair, all right? They still are able to provide what this country needs, at least in terms of English speaking. And in some cases, it's not sort of the precision, being a native speaker, for example, it's the ability, your ability to speak English. And that's not, again, a slight against the Philippines or any other country where English is their second language. This happens in corporations now, right? Offshoring jobs, H-1B visa, for example. So what happens when that's no longer a pathway for you teaching English? We also have the rapid growth of AI, and that will play a factor as well. So how do you really sustain yourself, add value to this country? And of course, we can hope to find a corporate job here through some of the multinational corporations, but even that's unrealistic because foreigners still comprise a very small number of the total population here. So especially if you're American or British or Canadian, we're a very small number. And so you are taking a very limited number of roles and you represent a very small population. The sort of probability that that will translate into an opportunity for you are low. And on top of that, you need specific skills, right? Let's say digital skills, for example, programming skills. A lot of people who come to Japan to teach English don't have those things. So you need something different. And even if you have something different, you still have a tough road to travel, a tall mountain to climb, because you're still an outsider. And to be successful, it is quite challenging. It takes time, it takes study, it takes patience. And so that's really, it's really something to think about if you have designs on Japan. Then there's also the personal drive. What's your reason for being? And I'm of the mind is that Japan, we're not in Japan for Japan to give something to us. You often hear, oh, well, the cost of living is cheap or the cost of healthcare is cheap. That's not the correct interpretation. It is what do you have to offer Japan? And English skills, we can factor that out of the equation. What else do you have? Many Japanese don't get an opportunity to interact with foreigners. And so can you create that connection? Can you sort of bring something to those interactions that is of benefit to them? Are you looking at every interaction as an opportunity to teach something about your country, something about how things work or current events, for example? Do you elevate? When you walk into a situation, do you elevate that situation? Because this is a very homogeneous society that's focused on harmony. And that's a fantastic thing. I think it's beautiful. But there are many Japanese who want to see a situation elevated, and they don't want something radical. They don't want thunder and lightning. They just want to see incremental improvement in their current situation. And so if you offer to practice English with someone in a non-classroom environment, if you just try to speak and socialize with them, you're a rock star. Because again, the reality is that many of them don't get access to foreigners. And so there's also a lot of stereotype stigmas, for example. And so what can you do to shift that narrative? So that's really elevating situations. And then community as well. Community is really big. Again, this is a very homogeneous, group-oriented culture. And so community is a natural extension of that. And again, recognizing that you'll never be one of them, but you can be part of the community. It's important to them. It's the familiarity. It's the order of things. It's the comfort. And when you're part of the community, regardless of what you've heard about Japanese culture being insular or Japanese not being very social or personable, that is entirely incorrect. When you're part of the community, Japanese are some of the warmest people you'll ever encounter, generous people, sincere, kind, humorous, so many different things, but it really takes putting yourself on a path toward that, and that requires intention. That requires stepping outside yourself. It requires you to sacrifice what you think you should get in favor of what you give. But isn't that what we should be doing anyway? Is giving more than we get, right? Like, because we make things better by helping situations.